And I'm not gonna botch the O, and I botched it.
Oh, you did. It's a gimmick.
Yeah, it is at this point. I'm stealing it from Robert Evans. He does a terrible opening every time, and somehow he gets more popular. So I figure, if I behave incompetently, the same thing will happen to me. It's a cargo cult of podcasting.
His thing on the Duggars is kind of apropos for what we're about to talk about, probably.
The Duggars? I don't think I saw that one.
Or was it Robert Evans? It might have been another podcast I listened to. Sorry. 2021.
By the way,
Bullet. Cheers.
Yeah, Bullet. I'm drinking this. It's actually full of mead. Yeah. But I'm drinking this because somebody in the debate questions. I expected the questions to be nuts, but like somebody was like, "Oh, Brent is obviously from Indiana," and I'm like, I am sorry, sir. There is no way that I am from Indiana.
It's justified.
It's Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, that was a justified joke, but Raylan Givens.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with Justified. I was thinking Justified. Yeah, Timothy Olyphant. I think he does a pretty good Kentucky accent.
I thought he was from Kentucky, but I've been fooled before.
Yeah, well, most people cannot do a Kentucky accent. Like, get me drunk enough, I'll move in that direction, but most cannot. Most do like a Georgia.
Y'all got some of that anarchist sweet tea? That's my best.
That's really bad.
That's really awful.
You gotta understand, like in Eastern Kentucky, I loved when he was saying that there were no poor people, there are no poor white people in the United States.
Oh my God!
Have you seen Eastern Kentucky?
I actually have.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Freaking Appalachia? Holy Jesus. Shit.
Like, where do you, like, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, where does he find these people? Like, and then I realized he's associated with Jesse Lee Peterson's.
Yeah, and he lives in L.A.
Oh, God.
I was like, oh, well, that explains a lot.
That explains a lot, actually. LA does funny things to people.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this debate that I had with James Hake of the Hake Report. I can't not say it like that now.
No, yeah, it's he's got a good name for podcasting. It's interesting to see. I don't want to use the term white fragility because it's overused lately, but it's interesting to see it actually like acted out in real life, where he's just like otherizing entire groups of people and attributing like all of the negative qualities in his own movement to those groups of people. Like whenever somebody says, and I don't like saying this out loud, but whenever somebody says the blacks and then starts attributing like characteristics to them, it's usually like a negative characteristic they're seeing in themselves. It's almost Nietzschean in that way.
I did a play called North to Maine about theorizing the Appalachian Trail, and there's a scene like right before intermission, and it's this one character who's sitting there, and they're talking about like first he's talking about how he's been away from women for a while, and so he's kind of there's not enough women or tissues for him, that kind of guy conversation. Yeah, and he's just like he gets to this point, and he's just like, yeah, but the gays, and people are like, what? And he's like, think about how much sex the gays have, man. And like the other is, how much sex do the gays have, Rockstar? A lot. Because of all the men. It was like I was having that. I made that conversation up. Actually, no, I did not make that. I had that conversation with someone and then used it in the play. But I made it funnier.
I was in the military, and if you guys aren't familiar with me, but I actually had an argument over if Jessica Alba or Shakira was more attractive with a friend at one point. And then I found out that exact conversation was a parody conversation in an Onion video about a realistic Call of Duty thing. I called him up. I'm like, Dave, man, this is a conversation we actually had. But it is notable that in none
Life
of my
imitates art.
Yeah, and none of my man talk or frank conversations that I've ever had with friends have I ever like dropped the N-bomb or like disparaged whole groups of people or
Yeah, like,
referred to segregation as the good old days. Or
what the hell was that?
like you have the let me pay you a compliment because I know
Mhm,
last time we did one of these I was a little harsh on you.
mhm.
Uh,
I think I was up against Destiny the last time, or
yeah, oh yeah, the hubris on that gentleman. Jesus, where do you find these guys?
the internet. That's where I
Yeah,
find them. I
you have the
find them.
patience. You have the patience of a saint, and maybe I need to look into Buddhism because I was like, I have coronavirus, guys, right now. So if my voice is kind of not the usual dulcet sound, I'm sorry. I'm okay. I'm vaccinated. It's mild. Don't worry. But I was like throwing my Perrier bottle caps near my laptop screen during this one. This is the one time I'm watching this where I really shouldn't be smoking, and I shouldn't be smoking anyway, and I can't drink any booze. So thanks.
Yeah.
I just had to click on Twitter.
You poor bastard. Yeah, no, he there. So it's weird because this is the third debate that I've done on Black Lives Matter,
Yeah,
and the only one that I actually got kind of mad in
yeah,
was against T Jump, and I think it's because I know T Jump and I like T Jump.
yeah.
So to hear him say that stuff, I was just like, oh, but then like I went up against that Nas guy who I still, by the way, to this day, think that like I owned him so hard, like the overwhelming rest of like the quasi white nationalist internet tried to come after me for it.
Oh yeah, the smoke avatar dude.
No, that's Smokey Saint.
Oh,
No,
okay.
this one was the he was
I'm
he
sorry.
was he was like the black guy from Holland who was like a politician or something, and he
Oh,
came in like he act. I didn't know anything about him. He came in acting like he was uh he came in acting like he was he was concerned trolling. He was like, I'm with you on Black Lives Matter, but all of the cases that Black
yeah.
Lives Matter are about are lies. And I'm just like, what the hell is up with this guy? I guess he's just a foreigner who doesn't know shit. And then like I get all these messages from like people from Holland. He was like some Nazi politician.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, they got like they got disgraced.
Imagine being a Dutch Nazi, man.
Oh,
Like not
after what your country went through with them.
at two world wars they got got messed up by the Germans. You become
Mm,
a Nazi. But I mean they weren't Nazis in World War One, obviously, but
yeah.
still general principle. But like yeah, he said some like I get that Jesse Lee Peterson's organization, and I'm being polite by calling it organization, not what I really think of it, because
Mhm.
it's your channel. Isn't really what you would call the mainstream of like our modern failed right wing movement in this country. But it's
Yeah.
interesting to see that this is kind of like popular
Mhm.
because he's saying stuff in this debate like I wonder if it's for shock value because I'm not familiar with this gentleman at all coming into this.
I didn't know much about him, and he showed up in the Urnaz debate and was
Yeah,
like super chatting at me, and because he had one of the things that had happened was that I had some of the details off on
yeah,
the Breonna Taylor thing, and so like he had tweeted at that, and I was just like, no, you're freaking wrong, and like I had the details wrong, but overall I was right, and
yeah,
like the so like he came in on that, and I was just like, after like all of that whole kerfluffle, I was just like, okay, wait, Dutch Nazi politician, this weirdo, and then all this other shit. Like, I started to think a little like Caleb at the time. Was like, is this a conspiracy? But yeah, he was one of the things that I did like. He'd spoken with Ben Burgess, so I watched his that with Ben, and it was pretty amicable, and I'm like, okay, I have zero shared values with this individual, but I feel like I can talk to him. So
right.
when James pitched me the idea of doing the debate, I was like, well, it's been a while. I don't really have time to do it, but I don't like disappearing from YouTube for too long because I've been I've been wedded to the algorithm, and if I don't produce a video on politics like every month, I start to diminish.
Oh god, you vanish like
It'll be yeah. It's like I'm the undead, and I've gone too far from my necromancer. So all that time I spent preparing for my upcoming comic launch of the Buenaventura Durruti comic and Slaza #5. Like, yeah, it just drained me because I just needed to come back on here and argue with a crazy person.
Yeah, and you did it because it didn't even wind up really being a debate about the merits of Black Lives Matter, which you can actually kind of have a debate about the merits of that the movement. I'm very much in favor of it myself, but like his opening statement just went off in so many different directions, and I was
pure gish glop.
Yeah, well, I thought he was trying to do Dollar General Trump at one point, and then I realized that he's part of the Jesse Lee Peterson thing. So he's doing Jesse's gimmick, where he just like makes short declarative statements, which is just basically down to rhetorically to nope,
Yeah, which is so weird because okay, so Jesse Lee Peterson, I've never talked to him before, but you'll notice whenever you watch Jesse, he has a very specific cadence. And Hake working for him had a very similar cadence, and I'm just like, what's going on?
Well, so like if you have if you're producing culture products for money, you tend to kind of mimic what's profitable. And in his case, Jesse is the cornerstone of that organization. He's working for Jesse. His audience is Jesse's audience. He wants to produce a very similar culture product to what Jesse produces because it winds up being profitable for him. Or even if it's not financially profitable, it's profitable in terms of clout.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I've noticed this kind of with like certain streamers in their audience too. Like, is this like some natural conformist thing that humans do that I don't understand because I got a weird anarchist brain?
You mimic what's successful and profitable. That was all Perrier. Ooh, God, the lime one. Sorry. No, like when you go to the grocery store, right? And the famous example of the potato chips. There's 500 different bags for the same potato chip. Right. But like you're producing potato chips, so you want to produce something similar to what's profitable.
Oh my God, I hate this.
yeah. Welcome to capitalism, my friend. So like it happens in culture too, but like well, you know,
it happened to me. There was I put out Snow White Zombie Apocalypse, like first as a play and then as a comic book, and like after Snow White Zombie got announced, like officially, there wound up being like a Kickstarter for like a snow like princesses versus zombies. And
I saw that. It was on my algorithm.
Yeah, it was like the bad version of
the like general version.
Basically, like everything that I did with the series and tried to avoid because it would be terrible. They're just like, nope, gonna do that.
It's the Dollar General version. Great value, great value edition.
The RC Cola of my comics.
Instead of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse, it's like maroon or not maroon. What would be like eggshell white undead adventure or something like that.
Eggshell white. You know what? I gotta say, I really hope that one day there is a weird Chinese knockoff of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. I've almost wanted to. So apparently, by the way, if you outsource your publishing to China, they will publish it and they'll do it like really cheap, but then they'll just take it and use it for their own thing. And so, like, I want my version of like. So there is a Chinese version book called Harry Potter and the Walk-Up Dragon, and it's just the Hobbit. It is the Hobbit with
they're ripping off the wrong thing.
They took the Hobbit and they just find word replaced Bilbo with Harry.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I want a copy of that. Because it's just amazing. But two, I just want some weird, inscrutable Chinese ripoff of what I'm doing at some point. I think it would be just absolutely delightful.
years ago, I bought a copy of Spider-Man 5 in Chinatown in New York, and this was in like 2005. And so obviously there was no Spider-Man 5, but it was Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 edited together wrong.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's actually, I still have the DVD. It's trippy, but I'm kind of glad he's doing Jesse Lee Peterson's gimmick, because when Jesse Lee Peterson does his gimmick, in the media, there's like a certain relevance or legitimacy he gets by being a black man saying these things.
Right.
And we see it with other people too. They mentioned The Economist, whose name just escaped me. Candace Owens is famous for it. But when Hake does it, you kind of see, as a white guy, it's much more monstrous hearing it from him. Like when he was saying like Trayvon Martin's murder was justified. Like
I don't know if you heard, by the way, in the debate when he was talking about that, and I was like, do you have kids? And he didn't seem to hear me, or he chose not to respond to that.
He chose not to respond to it.
Yeah.
Well, it's his 9 to 5, man. Like he's not thinking of it in terms of his kids. He's thinking of it in terms of this is a character I play, I think, in my opinion.
I would hope. I don't know. He struck me as, so this was weird for me. And one of the reasons why I was as empathetic, even though he has a lot of contempt for that term, as I was, and really trying to see things from his point of view and take his concerns, the ones that were valid, seriously, was he did strike me as somewhat good faith. Like he believed some crazy stuff, but it didn't seem like an act to me. And maybe that's just me being naive.
Or it might be me being cynical, because
well, you are one of the most cynical human beings I've ever run into. You depressing continental philosopher, former soldier who's
deeply cynical.
Yeah. Well, I'd be cynical if I'd lived your life too.
Yeah.
You've killed people. So.
Plus I'm fuck ugly, so that doesn't help either.
Oh, I've seen you once. You're
Yeah, I'm a solid 5 on a good day. And I ain't had a haircut in like 4 months, so my hair is doing the Anton Chigurh thing from No Country for Old Men. But
that happened to me once. I was working for Shadowbox Cabaret in Cincinnati. It was like one of my first like I'm a real artist gigs, and like they sent me to this place to get my hair styled. And I had like the long hair and stuff, and the woman was like, this was before we weren't allowed to wear dreadlocks, so she was just like, do you want dreadlocks? And I'm like, I don't feel like it's quite that long yet, and I'm not sure. She's like, if you want dreadlocks, come back here. I'll give you dreadlocks. I think she really wanted to give me dreadlocks. But I was just like, no, just kind of cut it like sort of shoulder length, do like a Kurt Cobain thing. And she just like did like a broad cut, and I came out looking exactly like Anton Chigurh.
Oh, no.
I had that haircut for like a month.
You flip the coin?
I hadn't seen the movie, so I couldn't do any of the fun stuff related to it.
All right, no. But I did see it. I think you did a very good job on this one. I did see a poll at the end where I think modern day debates has right wingers kind of flood their chat.
Yeah.
So like, don't worry about that. That's one of those things. I was thinking that Rick and Morty line. I don't care about your booze. I've seen what you cheer. It's like for the right wing types, but like the part where he said like you can't know like what Nixon thought, and then like he praised Nixon and Reagan. There's no material reality. You were talking crap about people who like dialectical materialism, so I don't think I didn't notice that.
Dialectical materialism. I'm not a Marxist, but dialectical materialism is a good way to analyze certain things. It's limited. It has serious problems with it, but like you talk to freaking Marxists. They think dialectical material. They think it's just tops.
The sacred texts.
Exactly.
But like he then like praises Nixon and Reagan. But he says that you can't know him, but I can know him.
I can, yeah. There was a lot. I felt, by the way, at the beginning, I thought I scored a major point when I pointed out the discrepancy essentially with regard to crack and powder cocaine.
Yeah.
And then he tried to explain that away by saying that the people that were selling crack were worse than the ones that were selling the powder cocaine.
No.
And then I got him on like, okay, but then you just add extra charges. You don't change what you're charging for.
Yeah. The other thing about it is that like his audience is probably a lot of people that haven't lived in Harlem.
Yeah.
So like their reference for like the crack epidemic, if you're like a suburban type.
Movies.
I'll tell. Yeah, I'll tell you a little story about myself in a minute. Is probably like New Jack City. You know, that's what the crack. When I was a kid, when I was like a little kid, we moved to Southern California for a little while, and we lived in Orange County. And if you're familiar with Southern California, Orange County literally has the Nixon Presidential Library in it. That's how conservative Orange County is. But I was surprised that California was a liberal state after we moved out of there. And I probably would have thought some of the same things if I stayed in that bubble that that his audience does, at least. But like it's interesting to see, because I don't see this in the wild, because I don't hang out in the Jesse Lee Peterson.
You don't put yourself through the total bullshit that I put myself through. For at this point, honestly, religious reasons. Like that's the only reason I'm putting up with this shit. To get a higher profile for myself and my art, and two, because it's literally my religion and I have to do it.
Oh man,
I am obliged to confront slanderers of the Lotus Sutra.
Yeah, the one guy asked you if there were Buddhist gods, and it's just like, wow, American education is kind of like failing. So
well, there are. I didn't go into. There are Buddhist gods, but they're not gods. They're devas. They like humans are higher than gods in a Buddhist system. So like, gods are. Think of it like a Buddhist god. If anybody wants to understand like Buddhism and their attitudes towards deities, think about how you think about superheroes, but not any superhero. Just like superheroes that are kind of an idiot. like the Hulk. Like the Hulk is there, and the Hulk has a blast destroying everything, but you don't really want to be the Hulk. It's not. You can tell from the way Bruce Banner has to deal with this shit. It's not something that you really should aspire to. That's how Buddhists think about gods.
Yeah, but it's and I think about midway through the debate, I was like, yeah, God dang it, Brett, be meaner, like crush this.
You sent me that message.
I did. I was frustrated. I apologize for that. But I think you actually did a good thing by being calmer. Because I was thinking about the time David Pakman appeared on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, which I've actually seen, and I think you do more to reach that audience by being calm and pointing out that he was wrong than maybe you would have if you just crushed him rhetorically. Maybe that's a failure on my part of my
No, you're totally right. And so here's the thing. I watched a little bit of his stuff. I tried to find, there's ironically enough not a lot of material on BLM. Like I was looking for stuff, and I had to look and like dive into different streams. And one of the things that I noticed beforehand when I was watching, I was like, okay, whoa, this guy and I have very little shared reality. And I won't say we don't have completely shared values. I really liked by the end, I don't know if you noticed it, but he was talking about the white nationalist who said he'd kill his kids.
Crying Nazi guy, or not the crying Nazi guy, but the other.
The crying Christopher Camp.
There's so many Nazis. I'm sorry.
No, just Christopher Camp. I loved that he brought him up, just because I've been in a forum where like people banned Christopher Cantwell when he was an ANCAP before he was a Nazi. Like there is a GIF of me somewhere on Facebook. You will probably never find it, but it's amazing. And it is literally because I got into it with Christopher Cantwell once, and somebody to make fun of like how badly I owned Christopher Cantwell. This buddy of mine made a GIF of like the My Name is Earl show with like Earl running away from the guy on like the fake legs, and it's literally it's Chris Cantwell running away from me.
Oh, Jesus.
So that meme exists. You will never find it. And if you do find it, I will congratulate you, because it was funny. It was genuinely funny. But like, or maybe I was running away and Chris Cantwell was on the fake legs. I think that might have been it. But that was like after Chris Cantwell got completely humiliated and banned.
Oh man, yeah, which should happen to the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, in my opinion. But as it's on now, it's probably a good thing to actually engage it and like expose the audience to actual like basic facts and some history.
But like, what I wanted to say, by the way, really quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going on and I got off on a tangent because ADD. Woo. No, so this was the really important thing that I did want to point out. So I noticed. So one, these people have this really weird idea about masculinity.
Yeah.
But they talk about how men don't have any anger. And that how anger is a feminine emotion, which what? But like at the same time, I was just like, okay, so this guy's fairly chill, so I can get along with him, and also he takes anger as a sign of weakness, so I'm not going to get angry with him.
Oh, that's smart. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Well, I do my research on the people that. Yeah, I was taking this very seriously because it's been a while since I've debated. I didn't know anything about this guy, and I wanted to make sure that when I came back, it was a strong showing. So yeah, I did my best to do my homework. I watched his debate with Ben Burgess. I watched entirely too much of a couple of episodes of his show. One thing I liked about him, though, by the way, this is something I really liked about him. He does radio. and
actual radio.
Yeah, like actual radio, and that's how I started. So, I can appreciate a shock jock, even if it's a shock jock that I disagree with.
Well, that's great. I guess I wonder what station he's on in LA. I bet it's like KFI 640 or something like that.
Some weird shit. Who knows?
Yeah. Sorry, I used to live out there. But yeah, that is smart because if his audience views anger as a sign of weakness and you get all angry at him, even if you're crushing him rhetorically, they're trained to think that that's weakness. So yeah, that is good. And it is weird to see like the hierarchy that exists in their like weird little universe. Like they have the racial hierarchy, obviously, because there's like the whole weird American thing where you have like the white race that's on top of the hierarchy, but at the same time needs to be protected from the savagery of the black race, which needs to be controlled, which is straight out of the Civil War era of racism at this point, by the way. Like everything he said was deeply racist. And then the weird hierarchy about like that's female minded and they need to be on like a lower hierarchy. So people joke about like the oppression Olympics with like the left, but like I want
the hierarchy Olympics.
The Olympics with the right. It's like it's actually real.
Yeah. It would make sense. It would be the inversion of what's on the right. Yeah, because the you would say that because you're a privileged, cis male. What it's just the opposite of that. Is your stuff is feminine. This, by the way, this is just like I deeply want to. I think I'm going to go on his show because we talked about this later on, and I would be totally up for it because like. Masculinity is something that I'm actually somewhat interested in, like the philosophy of masculinity. Like I'm by the way, to the rest of Left Tube and those of you writing weird fan fiction about me, I'm not going to pull a ContraPoints or what's it called? Philosophy. I'm not going to pull a ContraPoints or Philosophy Tube. At no point am I going to stop being a cis male because I actually really like being a cis male. I feel like it fits me, like not entirely, but to a T. I don't like most men, but I like me. So like. The point is that like I'm actually interested in talking about masculinity. I'm interested in like what other men think about masculinity, and so like the fact that it is such a core thing for Jesse Lee Peterson and his people that they use it in the way that they do it. And what's so weird is they use it in a way that my traditional masculinity actually says is feminine, in that they have this. The way I see masculinity is that a man needs to be strong-minded, and we need to be able to, if we're doing the traditional tropes and everything, like we need to be able to be independent and to think for ourselves. And I've noticed with the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff, when he's talked about it, their idea of masculinity being encapsulated by someone like Donald Trump is, in my opinion, a very feminine way of speaking about masculinity and thinking about masculinity, because essentially they're sort of just letting society in the broadest terms tell them what their masculinity is instead of imposing their masculinity on the world. You don't let the world take you for a ride. You take the world for a ride if you're a man.
Very Nietzsche.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, hang on.
saw
I got to show this because we just got a super chat. Thank you very much, by the way. Yeah.
$5.
See, Jaytona Ayers, Jack Yantis, and Tanis. You name. I refuse to believe any of these people are real.
Those are like all a lot of letters. I'm not familiar with those people.
Yeah,
That's
I'm not. I promise you, Texas White Panther, with your awesome. This is your second time coming
John
on here.
Brown.
Yeah, I know. John Brown, one of history's great badasses.
John
yeah,
Brown's
I love
body is a moldering in the sorry.
His spirit marches on.
Yeah.
John Brown, total nut. Absolute nutcase. But like that was a man who like was probably about as good as you can be in the era that he lived in.
Well, we have like a long tradition of crazy preachers in this country.
Mm-hmm. And
Jesse Lee Peterson. I'm just saying that we're living through like a era of like right wing ones ever since the guy from Chicago.
Well, the right wing took over the religion with the moral majority, and then dialectically the left wing decided they had to be secularism, and that you're going to lose on that one, guys. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
This was actually really interesting because we talked about like he was like, when do leftists look inward? And I'm like, well, yeah, all the time. You just don't see it because they don't do it in public. But I thought it kind of blew his mind a little that I was talking about like
struggle session,
freaking struggle sessions, and struggle sessions, by the way, are some of the most unhealthy things in the world. If you were looking inward, don't do it with your leftist group. No. Just don't. Go find a liberation theology thing. Go join Soka Gakkai. Do a place where they're going to take care of you and lift you up rather than just tear you into freaking shreds.
If you want to read a book that's kind of interesting that talks about what Brenton's talking about, there's a book called The Man on Mao's Right, which was written by Mao's English language translator from the 60s. And he got pulled into like struggle sessions like 8 or 9 times during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah.
He got sent to the penal work farm like 6 times over the course of the book.
I'm in the work farm again.
Well, yeah, the last time it happens, he's at an embassy party because he's a diplomat, and he tells somebody something very honest, and I forget what it was. But then he sees them going over to the political officer, and he's like, God damn it, I'm going back to the freaking work farm.
And that's why you don't be honest with anyone ever, and you keep yourself hidden from society. So, okay, this is fun actually. So I finished the treatment of the second Buenaventura movie.
Oh, nice.
The Buenaventura Durruti. We were doing this one called Wanderer's Feast, based on an incident in Durruti's past. And some things that had come out in the writing was that spoiler, the main character, one of the way the police, she's an activist who's been forced into becoming a police informant, and the way she's been forced into becoming a police informant is the police have blackmail on her because she's a lesbian. And this is 1925.
Yeah, when that actually mattered.
Yeah, which, by the way, based Mexico was not illegal in Mexico in 1925.
Oh, nice.
Napoleonic code, man. But anyway, like there's like a point that gets made in there that I realized is that one of the ways that we are controlled by society, by the state, is by being forced to act in bad faith and hide who we are. And I think it's something that is, one, it is exploited a lot of the time by people who want to maintain control. And so, of course, anytime you are being too honest with someone in, freaking Maoist China, they're gonna, they're gonna turn you in to help themselves because they are living in the world of animals. Literally, by the way, that's a Buddhist mental state. I'm not calling anybody an animal, except humans are animals, but you know what I mean. But like the point is like of this whole thing, when someone tells you, like, I've always been very critical of the concept of self-crit. Like, I'm in theory okay, but I really feel like the way I see it used in leftist circles and with leftist struggle sessions is it's just getting a person to torture themselves and give you information on them. And also, perform the mea culpa. It strikes me as a very cultish practice, and you should be very careful about it, which is not to say that you shouldn't be self-critical and to do your best to live up to your highest ideals and become your best self.
Yeah, there is a difference between what you're talking about, where you're actually examining your ideas, keeping the good, testing everything, which is something that you should actually do. And there's a difference between that and like self-flagellation, like the struggle sessions that you're talking about. Self-flagellation doesn't accomplish anything unless you're into that, which is your alternative lifestyle
or
choice.
you want to get high. I'm not kidding. When I have a 6-inch like raven on my ribs, and it took like 2 big long tattoo sessions, and they started calling me Evil Jesus because I was in amazing shape and I had this haircut. And when they finished the second one, oh my God, like for 2 hours I was like wandering around Louisville having like the best natural high of my life just from all the endorphins after enduring all that pain on my ribs. So,
which you could get from like a religious type experience, where you're doing something like that emotionally too, but that doesn't actually accomplish anything. You're right. All it does is it
just gets you high.
It just gets you high. Yeah, and it can become addictive. And if you can become addicted to that sort of thing, you wind up like
you're the guy on freaking what is it? Netflix's Castlevania.
Yes, whacking himself. Well, that was like a religious movement back then too. But
because you get high.
Yeah. Well, they also thought that if they hit themselves enough, the Black Plague would go away. But that was
that's not
that didn't
happen.
work.
That's the opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah, but like Hake's audience, or Jesse Lee Peterson's audience, practices a brand of Christianity that kind of gives you that same high, because you can be a sinner, you can be like looking for the good old days, you can not measure up to your standards of masculinity, you can kind of be a hypocrite, and then you just confess all of it to
You've just repeated the evangelical criticism of Catholicism, by the way.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. So I don't know enough about them. They're not Catholic, so do they have confession?
Well, no, I mean, like I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too Catholic in my perspective to examine it accurately.
Yeah.
But I've known some evangelical groups that like people will confess their sins in front of the congregation instead of like in a confessional.
Oh, instead of a confessional, yeah.
And you get the same kind of result, or you proclaim the ideology and then
for me, I always thought they dealt with it by just being massive hypocrites.
Yeah, there's that too.
Like what does they say? In a group of 4 Baptists, you always find a 5th.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas, like when I went down, I remember when I was first in Kentucky, and I was still Catholic. I went down, and the evangelicals, who would be very cagey about like what their actual sect was. They'd invite me to church, and I'm like, "Oh, well, what are you?" And they're like, "I'm just a Christian," and I'm like, "Okay, but what are you?" And they just be like, "I'm just a Christian," and they get like, "Oh, okay, you're a Baptist." But like, I remember they used to come in. They're like, "Well, you Catholics, you can go out there and drink and party and sin," and I'm like, "Okay, so first of all, drinking is not a sin. Second of all, partying is not a sin. Third of all, confession." It's a ritual that it doesn't literally, okay, whatever.
But like it's also like in the evangelical circles, if you like give yourself over to Jesus, it washes your sins away.
Yeah.
And I've known people that have been saved like 4 or 5 times over the course of their lives. So it does provide that same kind of release. It also provides a community. And I was thinking at the beginning of this, ironically, that like a lot of the weird stuff that he was saying in that beginning rant of his, they're kind of shibboleths for the people in his group.
Like he said, he's identifying himself as one of them.
Yeah, with the cadence, with the vocabulary, with all these sort of things, and he's identifying himself as the in group. And when you start speaking, you're not using the shibboleths; you're the out group.
Yeah.
So it allows people in that group to not engage with the arguments that you're making, and just automatically side with the guy who's using their in terms.
Yeah, because tribalism is a hell of a drug.
It is.
And I don't know, as a Buddhist, and also like as a radical, it's about like I want to break down those barriers to where we can relate to each other in more human terms. I'm glad I actually got to quote Daisaku Ikeda. That'll be fun.
Yeah, maybe somebody will look into him, man. There's always the off chance that somebody's gonna,
Yeah. Oh my God! By the way, speaking of which,
yeah.
so I have been listening to the QAnon Anonymous podcast.
Oh,
Which
I've
is
been listening to
phenomenal.
them too. They're
Yeah,
great.
they're Jake Rakutansky's like freaking writing. I love it. I love everything about it. But on that podcast, they had a recent episode where they were like doing like the new agey Q people, and a woman runs in there and starts talking about Daimoku.
Oh, no kidding.
And I'm just like, and she's explaining Daimoku, my actual Buddhist practice, Daimoku and freaking Ganyo, and she's just like,
You're
yeah,
so lucky that wasn't a red book.
Oh, blue book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Daimoku and Ganyo, and she's just like, yeah, you do it, and like you focus on what you want, and it happens. And I'm just like, oh my God, you think Daimoku is magic words that brings, bless your heart. I hope she continues to practice and chant, because it will hopefully lead her away from QAnon. But like, yeah, it was the weirdest thing in the world to see like my Buddhist practice repeated by essentially a crazy person that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Well, my dad is in kind of a religious community. I'm going to be very polite and call it a religious community himself. And what you said about like smarter people being drawn into those kinds of communities, it was absolutely correct, because you're right. They kind of build you up, they kind of break you down and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But hilariously, their guru is the guy who opened up Woodstock. And you never actually see him like in a lot in media anymore. Uh-huh. And I was explaining it to somebody, and they're like, "You need to turn on Tiger King right now," because it turns out that the Doc Antle dude, he talks about, he's like, "This is my guru," and he points to him. I'm like, "That's my dad's co-leader." So like I'll take your crazy person and raise you Doc Antle.
Yeah, it's fun when crazy people hit close to home.
Yeah.
Itzel X. The debate is I think it went really well. I was pretty happy from the beginning. I was pretty nervous going into it, because what I thought was going to happen was kind of what happened, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. Because I'm sitting there watching him, like, okay, he's going to gish galop and make a ton of assertions, and I'm not going to have time to disprove any of them. Or I'll maybe have time to disprove one or two, and then like basically I was just like, I was very worried, because I knew there was very little shared reality and values between the two of us going in. So like, I was worried about that, but I really felt like after the opening statements, the contrast between the two was enough that like any reasonable person was like, oh my God, Brent totally owned.
Like, well, it's interesting, because it didn't wind up really being a debate about Black Lives Matter. It wound up being you basically going through all of his gish gallops and shibboleths and weird rants about the blacks, in air quotes. Like, he never actually really addressed there's platforms out there for BLM organizations. He never addressed those platforms. He only addressed these weird conspiratorial in-group thoughts that his group has, which it's good that like that's out there. I think it's also good that he is like Jesse Lee Peterson. I see somebody in the comments saying that he's a lot like Jesse Lee Peterson. It's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing that he's like Jesse Lee Peterson, because like I was saying earlier, it is so much more monstrous to hear Jesse Lee Peterson's talking points coming out of a white guy than it is to hear them coming out of Jesse Lee Peterson. And I know that's not like great, a great marker of where we are as a society, but it's also, I think, kind of true.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk religion with them, to tell you the
do
truth.
It.
Like,
it'd be kind of interesting from a anthropological perspective.
Yeah, I like to talk about this shit anyway, and their beliefs are really weird, and I kind of want to understand.
Well, it's almost not like a religious group so much as it's like a GOP political group with like religious overtones.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's tax exempt though, and not paying
of course.
taxes.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was, I felt like the debate went well. I felt like I was in one of those situations where sometimes you don't want your opponent to talk too much because they'll control the debate. But I felt like sometimes the more he talked, the crazier shit he'd say.
Yeah.
Like when he said the Klan
wasn't bad. Jesse Lee
yeah.
Peterson says that too. And it's
God.
obviously not true. And
well, did you notice, by the way? So this is the weird. This is the anti-anarchist thing. So one of the things that Mike Humer has caused me to develop ulcers for
yeah,
is he will do this this rhetorical thing where he will try to turn people against the state by pointing out that the state does things that a person can't do. Because if a person did them, they would be considered evil. But when the state does it, somehow it's okay. And then, like when we were talking about like the Victorians, he was basically he did the reverse of that, where he's like, "Well, yeah, but it's great because it's the state doing that, and they have a right to do whatever they want." And I'm just like, I'm just so I'm used to the opposite of that argument. It's not a good argument either way.
yeah.
But like. I was literally kind of dumbfounded, and I was just like, I don't feel like I even need to respond to that.
it is weird, and it's like how much do you have to push back, and how much does it benefit people to just let him say like crazy things to a wider audience that isn't usually exposed to that? That won't take him seriously. Yeah. I did see a funny comment though. Somebody said it's a palette swap. So is he Sub-Zero to Peterson's like Scorpion or like? That's a good one.
I like that he brought up Peterson and roped him in.
Of course.
And I'm glad I got to push back on that whole be the change you want to see in the world.
That's so ridiculous. Like you have to keep your house in perfect order before you do anything. It's like no, even in Christianity, no one's perfect. We're all sinners. So that would preclude you from doing anything. It would preclude him from doing his radio show. It would preclude Jesse Lee Peterson from preaching. It's an insane thing that they're just using as a cudgel.
Well, what they want to do, what they want is they want people to be passive so that people can be controlled. They don't want they don't want people. They do not want ordinary people getting involved in the political process, taking control of their lives and their community. They want them to just let the most powerful people in the world do whatever they want. And you noticed, because he definitely had a very strong dislike for having an equal amount of power among each individual, yet simultaneously acted like he cared about liberty, but really like it's more like he just wanted the bullies to be able to freaking punch people.
Yeah, and it's not an infringement on your freedom of speech, and I think this can't be stressed enough. To have people not like what you're saying, if you're saying like the N-word and that black people are savages, like he was implying throughout this whole debate, it's not infringement on his freedom of speech for people to like react very negatively to what he's saying. It would be an infringement on his freedom of speech if
he went to jail for it.
KGB busted down his door. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like that's fascists oftentimes, and I don't think this guy was a fascist, though he has clearly thrown his lot in with them with some of the talking points. The Klan wasn't bad. Nazi as a slur.
Well, he's probably been called a Nazi a lot because Jesse Lee Peterson tends to associate with those gentlemen, like you're saying.
Well, yeah,
and racist is a slur, and it's a desire for like parody, like know you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't work because whereas like the N-bomb is an actual slur with like institutional power and history behind it and whatnot.
Yeah.
Calling somebody racist is just simply descriptive.
Yeah. I think I said that in far more words.
You did. I think it was good. I think it worked. I did see some.
I wanted to point something out before you forget. Before you say that, the Pogs. I felt like I really got him on the Pogs.
Yeah, you did. Wow, man! I haven't thought about Pogs since like 1994.
Neither have I. I think he was trying to make the argument that the kids who used Pogs were worse. And this was something that occurred to me in the debate, by the way. Yeah. And I don't know if I made this. I wish I had. But a lot of the arguments that he was making were circular arguments that you would make whether, like, I kind of pointed it out with racism. He's like, they're complaining about racism and it's not real. And, it's just the complaining about it that's causing all of these problems. And I was kind of like, okay, but what if it was real? And what would be different? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's not so much circular as it's like those spiral art things you used to get in the mall with a million circles. That would be the structure of his argument. But
yeah. So you were going to say something, so you can say it now.
I forgot, man. I got COVID. I do remember that the last time I did actually think about Pogs though is we used them as currency at one point in the military. But
wow, you use
yeah.
Pogs, you freaking loser.
Well, they didn't have change in Afghanistan, so they would give you like a 5-cent Pog. I still have one.
Wow. Did you play them? Did you?
They didn't give us slammers, man. They just gave us
money is ridiculous, and we just need to do away with it. Okay, so all right. So where do you feel I was the strongest in the debate, and where do you feel that I was the absolute strongest in the debate?
Well, I think your intro blew his intro out of the water because he clearly wasn't prepared for this. To do an intro. I did see somebody accusing you using a teleprompter. I'm like, bro, you can literally see his like computer screen.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, I don't have the time nor the inclination to memorize all the crazy shit I write.
No, like what was it? 5 pages, double spaces, about 10 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But you kept your cool, which was actually a really good rhetorical device that I didn't think was until you explained it to me, and now that makes sense. You could have brought more statistics to it, but like you didn't know what statistics he was going to bring up because he was just saying random shit.
Well, okay, so the Black Lives Matter. One of the things that I was so stressed about this is like the Black Lives Matter debate, especially if you've got two people that don't have shared values. Because I realized like I could go in there and be like, oh, well, Confederate statues are coming down and police departments are being defunded and that money is being put towards housing and like Donald Trump was defeated. And I could cite all of that as like accomplishments. And he'd be like, you're making my case for me.
Yeah.
Because there's not a shared values. There's not a shared reality. So essentially I was like, okay, what I don't want this to turn into is him just hurling as many accusations as possible at Black Lives Matter and me having to disprove each and every one of them in the moment. Because one, oh God, that's infuriating. And two, the more somebody does that, the greater possibility that because it's just a bunch of random shit, I'm going to make a mistake. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. But the one thing that you could have kind of brought to the table a little bit is that we're way lower in terms of violent crime now, even though there was a slight uptick under COVID, than we were in the 1990s.
Yeah. Well, that was in my opening statement. But you're right. I didn't wail on that too much.
And New York City was actually lower for murders year over year last month than they were last year. And the political violence that is done in the country, it's well over 90% every year. And you can look this up. The ADL compiles it every year. 90% every year at least is right wingers. It's not like BLM. BLM is not the one out there like doing political violence. It's almost always right wingers.
Yeah.
They probably have more in common with Hake than they do with you, to be honest with you.
I would agree. Like and that was something I should have brought up. But what he would have said was, if I did bring that up, he would have said he disbelieves it's fake. Yeah, fake news. And then, like, what do you say to that? You're just like, okay, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Read a book. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if someone rejects material reality out of hand, then you're never going to.
What are you going to do? Yeah. Well, and I didn't think I'd ever but what was interesting was when he tried to say that I was lying about my encounter with the cop. And so this is important, actually. So when you are talking to somebody and they're not sure if you're on the level, the way you can convince them that you are on the level is to be very specific. Because if people are lying or deceiving or hiding things, they tend to be very general and obfuscate. So that's a rhetorical tactic of mine. And, also, by the way, I was totally telling the truth because what happened to me was freaking ridiculous, and I couldn't have made that up if I'd wanted to.
Them some nice, mighty fine signs you got there, boy.
Oh my god! I'm just so happy that I'm like a white guy who is very gregarious and charismatic, so I can just talk my way out of those situations.
See, the one negative encounter I had with the pool. Well, no, I've had two. I was in a car with somebody that caught a humble in New York, but the other one was I was trying to hop the stile late at night in the subway. Oh yeah, well I was like 14, but I'm like hopping it, and all of a sudden like I'm like halfway over it, so like I'm in the air, and the cop's like, "You better be doing fucking gymnastics."
So you said that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm just doing these reps. Let me get my Metro card out.
So nice of him. I'm glad he warned you at least.
He was standing like right behind me.
Yeah, I bet you that cop like went back to his buddies and like, dude, this kid was gonna. I said, you better be doing fucking gymnastics.
I've been waiting 6 months to use that line.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was a very interesting debate. I feel like it was really strong. You know, I felt like I actually did a little bit better with him than I did with your Nas, just because he was so out there at times. I like him more than your Nas.
He seems like an okay guy, if not for the crazy right wing ideology.
Yeah. Well, again, like his biggest problem, and I think I pointed this out in the debate several times, is he thinks in a very myopic way, very black and white, very only my perspective, and couches everything else, everything that's not him. Like he said, and I think he even kind of acknowledged that like he was being unfair when he was like, "Oh, I just think communist means liar." And I'm like,
yeah, but it doesn't matter if he's being unfair if it's serving a literal divine mandate.
Yes, the divine mandate.
Yeah.
God is so boring.
It depends on which God.
Yeah, there are fun ones. By the way, so Bobby, I brought this up, but I may rant about this. I'm super busy, so I might not. But for people in the chat, I have been watching Castlevania on Netflix.
Yeah, I think
yeah, and so there is this bit, spoilers, in like the later seasons where there's a brother and sister from Japan who come in and they kind of have like a Sokka and Katara feel. Yeah, they have like a Sokka and Katara feel from like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like they're that kind of wacky. And then like at one point they get a little impatient with him, and I'm like, oh, I sense betrayal. Yeah. But like, and then like they both go to fuck him like at the same time, and I'm just like, oh, I'm on board for this.
And Alucard is a cold fish too.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was thinking. Like the whole time, I was like, yeah, he's dead, isn't he? So
I mean, like he doesn't do much in that scene either.
No, well, because the writers are afraid of male sexuality.
Yeah.
And so like I'm watching this and I'm just like, okay, this is actually getting really interesting. And like, and then of course immediately they're just like, okay, we're gonna kill you now because you're not giving us everything all the time. And he's like, wait, what the fuck? And they're like, yeah, no, you're lying to us. He's like, how in the world am I possibly lying to you? And they're like, we're just crazy and bisexual and we're gonna kill you.
They kind of redeemed themselves from that a little bit with a character in season 3.
Oh, okay. I hope that they do, because like when he freaking chops their head off, I was just like,
he impaled him. He put him on the pikes, man.
Yeah, which by the way, I'm glad, because that's cool. And but it wasn't motivated, and it was so fucking stupid. And so I was just like, just once in fiction, can a character have freaky sex with weirdos, and they just turn out to be weirdos who are into freaky sex? Like, why does it always have to be this? Like, they fucking tie you down and it's dinner time. Can't they just tie you down and it's weird and like you kind of like it, but then like the next day you feel a little weird talking about it, and then you're talking to your therapist 10 years later? Like,
it sounds a little autobiographical there, but
I wish. But like, no, it's like sometimes kinky people are just kinky people.
Yeah.
And the idea is so, I think, toxic to have every single story, whenever anyone encounters kink in any form, it's always they want to murder you.
I guess The Witcher 3 did it because there's some pretty kinky stuff in that game, and it kind of works out well for them.
Oh yeah,
The unicorn.
I don't know which, but
The-
Geralt's always in control in the sex scenes. The only time he's not in control is when Triss and Yen, if you try to romance them both, and then they leave, and it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out.
It doesn't work out. Okay, touche, you got me there.
So Witcher 3, you are Kingsterphobic. You are on notice. You're gonna get canceled as fuck.
It's only sold like 50 billion copies.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's how I will earn my fame. I will cancel The Witcher. Oh, someone's gonna try that.
Yes. I'm sure somebody already did.
Yeah.
We got another super chat.
Oh, we did. Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
I got you.
Texas Yucano is a 17-year-old subway worker who was arrested for trying to poison a cop with meth. Turns out, no surprise, the cops were like, oh, of course they were. Yeah, by the way, that was fun. In the debate, he'd never heard anyone say a cab.
Yeah, no, like in real life.
Which then, yeah, he's never been around activists.
No. Well, no, most people haven't. Like,
yeah.
Like,
it's a shame. Everyone should be around activists. They're crazy. Don't give them any money, but like,
give them a sandwich.
Give them a sandwich. You should experience protest culture.
Don't feed them too much.
Yeah, you won't get as freaked out by them when they do stuff to purposefully freak people out. Like Donald Trump with his. I thought he was going to bring it up. He sort of did, but he didn't with the pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon.
Oh, I remember that.
I remember that. Yeah, and Donald Trump is sitting there, and I'm just like, like you have to understand, like, yeah, if you take that super seriously, it's awful. But like, you the people that are chanting it can't even hold up their signs in a stiff breeze, and like. It's the equivalent of those like anarchist high schoolers just dropping the fishing lines with donuts on their end in front of the cops. It's hilarious.
Oh God, yeah, I remember them doing that.
That was one of the best. That was during Occupy. Like that was when Occupy Montreal. I was like, yeah, you guys, you got it all together. That's fucking funny.
I would have gone for the donut.
I know, because donuts are delicious.
They are delicious.
But that's
they probably
also,
spiked it.
Yeah. So that's the thing about like what's it called? Like food, like slurs, like with regard to food. The reason why cops and donuts is like super offensive, and why certain cops will try to avoid eating a donut in public, or watermelons and black people or whatever. It's because you are taking a person, you're reducing them to an animal. Yeah. You're saying they cannot control their animalistic urges for this particular kind of food. So it is literally a form of dehumanization. It's just funny because fuck cops.
Yeah, I mean, well, but like there's like.
I'm sorry, Bobby. Did I offend you?
No, God,
okay.
Jesus. No, I'd let you know. I'm just thinking like there's like a serious power imbalance from making fun of cops because they get to eat sweet treats during their workday, and then like reducing black people to the slave diet that they used to have to eat.
Sure. Yeah.
is something that you might want to put in there. No,
that's a good point. I forgot that was that the slave diet? Was it like watermelon and chicken?
I know the soul food has its origins in that. I'm not like a historian of that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about it. I freaking love watermelons.
Yeah, I'm growing watermelons in my garden right now, and I have a flock of chickens.
One of the only things that I'll miss of Afghanistan is the watermelon season there is amazing.
Yeah, we should talk, by the way, because you're one of the only people with like takes on Afghanistan that could actually matter.
Yeah, I want to do a stream on it. I'm just trying to get you guys. I'm sorry if I've been a little off tonight. People listening, and Brenton especially, but I've got COVID, so I've been trying to get an Afghan thing together for like a week.
I would love to be involved with it or just watch it or whatever. I don't know if it's because I am fascinated with the whole clusterfuck of the situation. You can tell me yes or no on this, by the way.
Yeah, no, sure.
So I kind of feel like they were not simply pulling out for political reasons, but because they were pretty sure they were going to lose if they didn't.
No.
What, really?
What do you mean, the Americans?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no scenario in which the Taliban actually, even
Could have overwhelmed them.
even
really?
like 2,500 Americans, the firepower differential is just so, like, okay, so like,
oh, so they're just pulling. They're just legitimately pulling out. It is what it
20
looks
years
like.
of war. Yeah. So like, Taliban has like heavy weapons and stuff. They don't have tanks. They don't have planes and stuff.
Well,
So
now they
like,
do.
well, they don't have like serious offensive
Yeah,
air force. But
capabilities.
like, imagine how much firepower Joe Biden would commit to Afghanistan to avoid Americans explicitly losing a tactical engagement.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I had kind of felt like maybe they just like maybe the Taliban was more powerful than they were telling us, and
Oh,
they just wanted
they
to
were way
avoid
more
it.
powerful than they ever told any of us. But
Mhm.
like, doctrine, firepower wise, like they couldn't take bases defended by Americans. They could have taken all the Afghani bases, but like,
Yeah.
if we had like Bagram and Jalalabad, like, they wouldn't have taken those bases, but they would have been isolated bases, and that wouldn't have been a good look either. But they wouldn't have there wouldn't have been like a overrunning us situation.
Yeah. So why didn't they just do a troop surge like they did in Iraq?
They did in
Oh,
2012.
in 20, and they just
I
well,
mean,
it's Afghanistan.
you know,
Like,
well, the thing about a troop surge is that it assumes the enemy is a potted plant.
mhm.
This is something that somebody told me in a college course I took. Where there's a nasty tendency in officers to assume the enemy is a potted plant, and they can't do anything after
Mhm.
you do your thing. So
Yeah.
like, you're imagine you're the Taliban, all right? You've got the haircut for it. Congratulations.
And
And then
beard
the
is
beard.
still got to work on the
Yeah,
beard.
you just gotta get the Afghan clothes. I actually have an Afghan hat. I can mail one to you.
Great.
But and you're carrying out operations in whichever province in Afghanistan, yeah.
Right.
Uh, and then all of a sudden, Obama ups the number of troops from, like, 50,000 to 210,000.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to keep continuing your operations as normal, or are you going to keep your head down until the troop numbers go down?
That thing, the
Yeah,
second thing.
this is exactly what happened in Iraq too. Like,
Yeah. So
you know,
you pop in the troop surge, and then
yeah,
it calms down, and then you get rid of the troops, and then it.
pops back up. Especially when you have like a more popular Taliban, especially after you have the failed Trump administration thing where they
Ugh.
let 5,000 of them out of jail. Uh, we basically had a deal to leave the country at that point. You have a massively unpopular central government that can't actually project power anywhere. This will be something that I'll cover in great detail some other
Yeah.
time. But yeah, the Taliban was never in danger of. Even now, I don't think they could overrun Kabul airport without taking like murderous losses.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
I guess. I think so.
yeah.
We just lost for no reason.
We lost because war is political, and we didn't know what our political goal in Afghanistan was.
Right. And also, I will add, Afghanistan is where empires go to die.
Yeah, I mean, the Mountain Bowl in Bagram, where I was in Afghanistan. You land in Bagram Air Base, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get off the plane. You're looking at the control tower that was built by the Soviets in 1919 as a prestige project, long before they invaded. You see the Red Army star on it. There's a mud fort to the north of that runway that the British built in the 18 whatevers when they were there, and I think it's the northeast corner of that bowl and mountains, one of Alexander the Great's generals is buried.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the?
You can't control mountain folk. They're just going to do what they want because
Pretty
it's a
much.
mountain. And what are you going to do? Are you going to come into the mountain every day? No, you're not. Shut up.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Which is why I will disappear into the mountains when I'm done with all you people.
Good luck.
Which will hopefully be sooner rather than later. Or I don't know. Does that mean I'm dying? I don't know. But I'm still trying to decide. Like when I was a kid, one of the like there was a teacher that came in, or like a person to assess my intelligence and stuff. And one of the questions they was like, sometimes I wish, or sometimes I feel like, and I answered it, walking into the woods and never coming out.
Well, it depends on what movie we're in. If we're in like Jeremiah Johnson, you're okay.
Yeah,
If we're in like Legends of the Fall, you're out of luck.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll figure out what that means at the end of my life. But anyway, this has been a great stream. I need to go to bed soon.
Yeah,
and I was worried about this debate, so I'm very glad that it went well. I will talk to you later, Bobby.
All right, you have a good night, Brenton.
Yep. And we are leaving